The governor's proposal has a tuition restraint clause. And the clause says, if you keep next year's tuition increases at 7.1 or below, your cut will be 15%. And that's true for all the public 15 colleges. He called it a tuition incentive grant. And I thought, well, okay, that's fine. I need to understand this. But I have taken a little bit more realistic approach. If we exceed that ceiling by that 7.1% ceiling, let's say the board gets risky, and says we're going to raise it 7.11. The penalty is that Gavin sends the state $2,142,200. In a way, by keeping tuition down, the cut is 15%. But I don't want to mislead you at all. The cut starts at 19.7, and the board will make a decision with input from administration on tuition in July. And, we're doing a lot of arithmetic now on what is our best approach, but it does look like keeping to 7.1 and below is a pretty good thing, because 15% cut, significant, is certainly better than 19.7. Now, here's where it gets a little risky. He has said that from fiscal year 14 and on, you're going to stay the same. You're going to have one rough year and then stay the same. In his proposal, though, in order to stay the same, the tax restructuring he proposes must net him $1 billion. If he can't net, as from my understanding, and I know the media is here, but my understanding is if he doesn't net that $1 billion, then we're looking at budget cuts again in 14 and 15. Now, the economy is improving. The last Senate Fiscal Agency report looked pretty positive. I do think that it's a reasonable thing, and if people are willing to engage the tax reform proposals that are being discussed, then I think the odds are relatively good that our budget will be untouched in fiscal year 14 and 15. But $1 billion is a lot of structural reform in a very short amount of time. And I just felt, out of respect for all of you, that I needed to share that perspective of mine relative to that budget. The other part of this that is really a bit unusual, and in a way we're getting punished for it, but I don't want to use, well, I used the word, but I shouldn't have used the word. When we looked at the calculations of tuition upon which the 19.7 was based, Gavin deserves a lot of credit. He noticed that something just didn't look right. And what they did was annualized the stimulus money that we decided to give completely to students. And it led to a miscalculation of the base tuition rate this year that the state people used. And what that means is that if the current table of data holds true, the ceiling for tuition restraint will be 4.5% for us rather than 7.1. Which means that if Gavin can and I and Susan and others can't twist enough people down in the state to understand that miscalculation, then that simply adds to the cut level that we have got to figure out, or about another 2.6%. So it's no small thing, and that's why we're pouring over. And I will be the first to admit, because the media is here, we are studying the materials intensely so that we understand what the governor is proposing. We are scheduled to meet with the SFA and the House Fiscal Agency, Senate Fiscal Agency, to make our case to recalculate that. Now, the other piece that you should know is that the governor did propose a 2-year budget, 1-year binding. He would give us an idea of the budget in fiscal year 13, but we have not seen that yet. We know that he is proposing formula funding for education, K-20. We know that his 2 priorities are graduation rates and research. But yet, other than that, we don't know much more about that fiscal year 13 budget. But as you all can see, it's very clear that I sort of have to look at fiscal year 12, and that's a huge barrier to get through to even think about 13 and 14. So that's our understanding as of today. And I'm hoping that you can grant me a little bit of license, because I really have to dispel any denial or disbelief that you now hold about the size and probability of this cut. In talking to many of you around campus, many of you are thinking, well, we made it this far, we got through the recession, let's just hunker down, keep going, we're going to be okay. I tried to think of a clear way to say to all of you that the probabilities of a 15% cut are high. Okay? Now, granted, we're going to get to process in a moment, but before we get to process, you have to understand the magnitude of this. Okay? Now, you're allowed to chuckle because the President's Council said, Les, you can't be serious about telling people this. But I went into teacher mode and I said, the people around me have got to understand that a 15% cut is $6.77 million in permanent money, not one-time money. This is an ongoing permanent reduction. $6.77 million is the cost of educating 521 students in Northern. It represents nearly 85 to 100 jobs. Now you can chuckle at these. No snow plowing for 10 years. You're on your own. No heat, power, or water for any building for 1 year. Now, Tom, the bookstore, we could sell a lot of long underwear with NMU all over it, sweatshirts, etc. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's real. It is a permanent loss of revenue. Now, here in bold, we're not going to eliminate 85 jobs. We're not going to stop serving students. And we're not going to postpone taking care of our facilities. That's why the next set of bullet points are pretty critical, although they might seem vague to you. But we are at a point, after 8 consecutive years of budget reduction, of having to look at systemic changes. If you add the 15% to what we have done since about 9 years, so 2002, we will have whacked our budget, general fund budget, by about a third. It's about 33+%. We're serving 2,500 more students in those 9 years. There is no more room for gimmicks and one-time tricks. That's the message today.